Well, good afternoon. It is the appointed time for the December special meeting of the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board. We are celebrating today. We have a new municipal councilor here, and so I want to get your career off to a good start with us. Do we have a quorum?
Looks like it to me.
David said you always would get it right, so we're okay. Great start, Carol. We're glad to have you with us. You've been furnished copies of the minutes of the previous meeting on November the 21st. Are there additions or corrections to the minutes?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Item 3, we have before you the MAPS 3 revenue and expenditure report. What do you want to tell us about that, David?
Well, Mr. Chairman, you have in your packet the MAPS 3 revenue and expenditure report for the period ending October 31st, 2013, and it's in its usual format. I'll go over it briefly. On the revenue side for the month, it was $9,295,836. For fiscal year, revenues of $36,202,295, and for a total program revenue of $345,087,366. On the expenditure side, you can see the various programs, and for a total on the month of expenditures is $5,664,165. Fiscal year $8,989,080. For total expenditures of $38,891,942. Glad to answer any questions.
So the bottom line is it's coming in faster than we're spending it.
It is, but that's how it's planned.
Perfect. Michael, what do you want to tell us about it?
I don't want to tell you anything. I'm just curious about the expenditures on the streetcar and transit for this month. $4 million, $4.5 million.
For this month, I'm sure that part of that was consultant fees. Lance, can you help me on that? The streetcar expenditures?
You didn't do the down payment on the building, or?
Oh, that's right. Part of it was right. $2.5 million was for the building that was put down. That is correct.
Are there any other questions?
For how long have we been collecting money for MAPS 3? We're approaching 50% of our projected revenue, and
We are, and we're on target. You see, we're 5.6% over projection, so we're right where we need to be.
I just couldn't remember when we started.
Yes.
April 1st, 2010, I believe. The election was in December of 2009. Started collecting the tax April of 2010, I believe.
Okay.
Is that right?
Okay. Oh, okay. That gives me some good context. Thank you.
We've had a motion that we approve and receive the report. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The report is received. That brings us to item 4 on the agenda, the resolution approving the MAPS 3 Downtown Public Park. And I'm going to turn it over to David, but I want to make just this comment first. We have plenty of time. We have Mr. Hargraves with us today, and we're delighted to have you here. But we have wanted to just mention to each of the board members that you had in your packet a proposed resolution, and we have passed out an amended resolution that will reflect some action by the subcommittee yesterday. And so we will discuss that after we've heard the presentation. But we have 2 proposed resolutions, and David and Kim will explain to us what we need to know about that. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 4 is recommend resolution approving MAPS 3 Downtown Public Park Master Plan Project M3-P006. It's been a long journey that we've gone on producing this master plan. We've had public meetings. We've had many stakeholder meetings. We've had user group meetings, meetings with the subcommittee, and as I said, it's been a long journey, and yesterday was kind of the culmination of that. So we're glad to have George Hargraves and Jacob Peterson here from Hargraves and Associates to give us a summary of the master plan. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Hargraves.
You're recognized. Welcome to the home of the Thunder and the home of a new downtown park. We're glad to have you
and a
here.
proud Thomas Jefferson Junior High graduate from Oklahoma City. That's me.
We're glad to have you back.
Yeah. I'm going to go through the slides as summary slides. Yesterday, I got to my fourth slide, and they made the motion to approve. So we're going to try and get through this. Anyway, as David's right, it is the culmination of a long process. Do you have screens on your
We do. We
Okay,
have screens here.
Great.
Thank you.
I put this slide up just because it is the Corridor Shore plan that started all this, and the park is certainly embedded within this plan. One of the things that I was very pleased to see yesterday were the economic benefits coming outside the park. We've seen this in a lot of our projects. That's why we get hired to do a lot of these projects in sort of downtown reclaimed areas. And we're often seeing 3 to 4 times the investment that's put into the park, and the infrastructure for the park, comes back to the city in revenue. And so you're on a typical course for that. But I think you're to be congratulated for that. Some new news for us with the streetcar location, which is now going to come down right flanking our park, which we think is a marvelous addition. It's going to bring people of all socioeconomic levels to the park. This is the map that we did, concept design, in 2009 before you went out to the bond vote. The recent master plan activity we've done a conceptual river edge so we can anticipate the shore that we're going to in the Corridor Shore plan. We've provided written responses and discussion of many of the subcommittee comments. We've also provided criteria for possible adaptive reuse of buildings, and then we have an updated schedule for phases 1, 2, 3. There's some basic comments that came from the subcommittee that we're going to address in schematic design. But I didn't want to go through a little bit of the process, just remind everybody how we got here. As David said, we had 3 public meetings. I think one of the cornerstones to those public meetings was a survey that was sent out, and over 1,600 people responded to it. And you'll see, if you look at the bullet points of this survey, you can pick off almost every one of these items, and you'll find them within the programmatic activity that's in the park. We then went through a series of alternatives before we arrived at the preferred master plan through work with the public process and the subcommittee. This is a map of the upper park, and you can see many of the program elements that are in it, and it's quite complex. There's a lot there, and I'll just pick off a few things. There is, of course, a stage, a major concert area, adult fitness, family recreation area. There's a promontory, there's a lake, boating facilities, a reuse, adaptive reuse of Union Station. All of that compromises the first, and a children's playground compromises the upper part of the park. The lower park takes on a much more relaxed type of character, some recreation, dog walks. We're trying to create a facility next to the Manuel Perez Park as part of this. But I think something that, one of the things that sort of glues this whole project together is the forest. It's very hot here in the summer. We all know that. So we're planting over 2,000 trees in this park, and that is really our main sort of ameliorating factor for the hot summers. The hot summers are when we're going to get our most use. We're going to see a lot of use in the shoulder season, spring and fall. We're even hoping to see some significant use in the winter. This is as you enter the park on the corner across the street from Chesapeake Arena. The concert facilities in the background, and this is the beginning of the Corridor Shore walk through this park. This corner links up with the bridge down at I-40. This is entering from the other side, which has completely different character, much more woodland, wildflowers, prairie grasses that then take you into the park. This is going to be a famous postcard, we think. This is looking at you're at the top of the amphitheater, looking out over the performance venue and also informal recreation area, and the developing Oklahoma City skyline. This will be a place to watch it as it grows. Then as you turn around from that same spot, you look at this very sort of bucolic atmosphere of the woodlands, native plantings, the lake and the boats, and then, of course, Union Station in the background. This is the promenade that connects through the park down to the bridge. Very generous, rich materials, special lights, trees. We're probably going to add trees on the other side for shade consideration. And then this is below. In the southern part of the park, we are going through the more naturalistic part of this park. We think the crown jewel of the park is Union Station, and we are working actively with our client to find the best uses that can go into this building. This building is 55,000 square feet. That is a lot of space for a park. There are many examples of party spaces, gathering spaces, restaurants that have been done in the large space that this building has. I'm familiar with the Cincinnati Union Station, where they have great events in the big hall, where they charge $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for an event. And then in the back wings is where they have the Cincinnati Museum. There are park buildings and structures located throughout the site. There's a cafe at the very northern part with a shade structure. There's, of course, a stage with bathrooms and a green room. There is a structure with the boat rental area to sell tickets, boat rentals, shade, and the same thing is next to the water and exploratory and play area. All of our major program nodes have restrooms, shade structures that are convenient to the location of those particular programs. I think our total of square footage of buildings, around 3,000? It's about 5,000. 5,000, thank you, Jacob. And this is an aerial perspective of what the project will look like upon completion, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Now, one of the things that came up in the development of this and going through our master planning process was people wanting to know, well, where are we going? What's going to happen when we get to the river? That's outside of our site, but the MAPS group gave us a little bit of money to study that so we can kind of anticipate where we're trying to go. Of course, the idea is, again, the core shore. That's why we're all here. These are a couple of ideas for the shore. It's not part of the approval, so you should know that, but it is an idea of where we're trying to head. You can see that at the culmination, getting to the river, we would have a public boathouse, cafe on a pier, boating facilities, a major lawn, forest, and in this particular scheme, an island is anticipated to go out. This is the planned development of it. This is a little bit less expensive, less advanced type of idea, very similar concepts without the island. The people that we've been working with do prefer the island scheme. And of course, we've done many parks where, you get and you bring the city to the river and you really sort of celebrate the culture of these river cities. Chattanooga is on the upper left, and I think the other two images are Louisville, Kentucky. Now, this is the fun part. Next steps, schedule and phasing, building a project. We have conceptualized phase 1, which you see in the second image from the left, so that we can get the performance area into the park in the first phase. This is critical to us because it gives an attractor in first phase. It's not passive. This is really leading with the heart of the park, the living room of the city of Oklahoma, of Oklahoma City, and so we would get the complete amphitheater facility, the lawns, the trees, the stage, the greenhouse, the bathrooms, and some of the plantings in front of it, and then connecting, down Robinson to the end of our site. Then phase 2, and that would be complete in spring of 2016. Phase 2, that's a total of around $10 million. Then phase 2 of $45.7 million is due to be completed in spring of 2019. That is the rest of the upper park. And then phase 3, what we call the lower park, or the area below I-40, that would be complete by 2021 with a total budget of $24.4 million. All of this is within the MAPS money that has been budgeted for the project. So specifically, the phase 1 improvements, the Great Lawn, the promontory, the stage, as I talked, the Boulevard Garden, the connection down Robinson, but then many of the other things will come in phase 2, like the fountains, the cafe, the boathouse, the children's playground, the adult area, all that would come in phase 2. But phase 1 gives us a very significant attraction that will bring people from downtown to this northern part of the facility. And of course, as you know from previous presentations, this is situated so it becomes a complement to the Chesapeake Arena. That's it. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can we see it again? No.
You didn't get to see it yesterday, I know.
Well, George, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all the work that you bring to the world and the part that you've brought to Oklahoma City. You have an amazing team with an amazing amount of creativity, and we couldn't be more pleased with what we saw and what we know we're going to have. So thank you very much.
Thank you from me, Mary Margaret, and Jacob.
Other questions, comments? All right then, David, anything you want to add?
Resolution?
Well, we have, yes, I guess we'll talk then about the resolution. You had in your packet a resolution approving this plan and moving it forward to the City Council at their next meeting. There was discussion there about things, I guess, that are not included in the master plan, and that would be some existing buildings that some people think they would like to have an opportunity to do something else with, but it's not included in this plan. So you want to take it from there, David?
Right. There were two groups that were given the opportunity to do presentations because they had expressed interest in possibly saving that film exchange building. So there was a good discussion within the subcommittee, and ultimately what the subcommittee voted for was to approve this plan, move it forward, but to allow a 90-day period for those people to formalize their plans that they had, because they didn't have completed plans yesterday. They didn't have necessarily financial backing and all the drawings they might need and their full pro forma, if you will. So the subcommittee chose to go ahead and allow them 90 days. That the discussion also went on that will not delay what we're trying to do here, that there'll be time that we still need to amend the contract with Hargraves to begin design. So that was the second resolution that you have.
Carol, help me with this. My thought is that we would have Kim or someone make a motion that we adopt one of these resolutions, get it seconded, and then we would discuss the alternatives. Does that seem like the right way to do it?
Yes.
So, Kim, you want to make a motion that we adopt one of these resolutions or the other?
Before we do that, I would just like to briefly talk a little bit.
Okay.
First of all, yesterday I think was the finest parks subcommittee meeting that we had. It truly showed the promise of the MAPS franchise. We had 4 wonderful presentations. First, we heard from Kathy O'Connor and the Alliance of Economic Development, and we saw the future. We saw what's going to be around the park in the next 20, 25 years, 30 years, and going forward. And that was our first charge, to begin a park that could be carried forward for generations. We saw plans for the streetcar hub, which is proposed to be nestled in an area next to Union Station that might be awkwardly developed by anything else, which that brings transit, as you said, to the side of the park and to what could be a great neighborhood. So we've engaged the park at yet another level. We also saw a presentation about how the convention center designs are progressing, even though they haven't been approved, but how we're interacting with the convention center. And I love the fact that all of our consultants are working together for the big picture, because that's what it's all about for years to come. So as we took our breath yesterday and approved our plan at our subcommittee level, it's not work over. It's work starting. We've just begun. There are so many more details and items that need to be worked out and decisions, but I think yesterday energized a lot of us to take that deep breath and get ready to start running forward. So let's move into the resolution. The first resolution that came before us was approving the plan as submitted, and I would like to make a motion that we do approve the plan as submitted in our first motion.
Is there a second? The motion been made and seconded that we adopt the resolution approving the downtown park master plan. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, excuse me, Tom. Tom, I would like a couple of remarks here. First of all, I want to say that in general, I think the Parks Master Plan, it's clear all the work that was done, and it's exciting. And on the basic substance of it, I think it's a wonderful plan. However, my concern has more to do with why I'm going to abstain, and I want to make a statement about why that's the case. The thing that we have not done yet regarding this whole master plan, one of the recommendations in the plan is that we put together a conservancy that is put together that will be the primary fundraising tool for the maintenance and operations of the park. You know, I still remember the very first meeting that I had with Mayor Carnett, and when we talked about the downtown park, he made it very clear that the subcommittee should also be concerned about how that park is going to be maintained and the operational costs. And I know for at least a couple of years, some of us have talked about the importance of this conservancy. But since, at least as far as I know, nothing has been done toward getting to that point where we think that we actually going to have a conservancy in place, a chairman named. Simply because of the timing of all of this, I'm reluctant to approve a plan that does not have more. We're not further down the road about how we're going to pay for it. My career has been in the nonprofit world, and I've been involved with a number of capital campaigns. And I cannot tell you that I would have never got the board of directors of the agency that I work with to ever approve a capital plan unless there was a plan in place, a budget in place, of how we're going to pay for operating that facility. And it's for those reasons, it has nothing at all to do with the master plan, but it's for those reasons that I just don't feel comfortable at this time approving this plan. But I wanted people to know why I'm abstaining.
Okay. Further questions? Bob?
Yeah, just a question to follow up on Mike's comment. Has anyone ever made an estimate of what the maintenance and operating costs for the park would be? I assume mostly maintenance. There aren't a lot of activities that require operating expense.
That's addressed in the master plan. If I could get Jacob to come to the podium and maybe talk about some of that.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about this. So
we hired a professional consultant that does that as their primary work. ETM Associates out of New York, they did a full operations and maintenance report, calculating how much it's going to cost to operate and maintain the park in Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. And then we had our economics consultant bring forth ideas on how that could be paid for with a variety of public and private funding resources. So all that's documented in the master plan. So I feel like we have provided a very clear, forward-looking assessment of operational costs and potential revenue sources to offset those operational costs. Now, there is some work to be done, but often that work is done in parallel with the detailed design of a park like this. I would say it's almost never in place before a park begins design. It's something that the master plan sets a framework for, sets targets for, and then the city starts working towards that as the design progresses. So all that is satisfied in the master plan.
And Bob, when we were in the selection process early on for consultants on this project, I think we received 37 proposals. I know it was 2 huge boxes of material that were delivered to my home, and it took days and days to just read through things. And there was a lot of talented people, companies that wanted to be a part of this. And in my mind, what kept surfacing over and over was the only group that brought the whole party to the table was Hargraves, because they included that, which to me, we're not landscape architects, we're not designers, nor are we capable of putting those budgets together. It's the largest park that this state will ever have. And our Parks and Recreation Department needed help, I felt, in that respect, to be able to put those things together. We certainly didn't want to build a park and then put that whole burden on city staff. So that was one of the things that added to the attractive package that Hargraves came. And there is a lot of work that's going to have to be done, both in city funds and philanthropic and through a conservancy. And they've all got to work together.
Well, excuse me, my question really was whether, to my mind, it might be nothing more than having to mow the great lawn, periodically in terms of maintenance expense. But I didn't know if MAPS funds would cover those, at least during the, next 6 or 7 years while the park is being constructed in the various phases. Are those maintenance costs, as parts of it are being developed, covered by MAPS funds, or do they have to come from other sources? And if they come from other sources, have we contemplated where those are? If the city's prepared to do that, great. It's something that we need to be aware of, and I just don't know the answer to that question.
If you look in the master plan on page 289, there is a detail of expenses and income that is anticipated.
And David, I will confess, I have not downloaded the full master plan. I'm content with PowerPoint at this juncture. I have not read it because I trust that Kim and her committee will wade through all those numbers.
Bob, I'd just add that this same issue comes up in virtually every subcommittee, and Jim Couch has been to the Modern Transit Committee and said, you should assume that if we submitted it to the voters, and we've asked all of you to oversee the implementation plan to create a new park, that we will maintain it. You should only do your job. You don't need to do our job. We will do our job. We've asked you to oversee the implementation plan to build a new downtown Central Park, and that's what we're asking you to do, and that's what we're asking to approve. George, you want to be heard?
It's a detail, but a lot of our funding is coming from the TIF district, Tax Increment Financing District, which will be put in place as part of the overall redevelopment plan. So there is a mechanism that's already being designed that will generate a lot of the maintenance money for the park.
Thank you.
Whether it's a TIF or a redevelopment district, there's a lot of different ways you can name that entity.
Okay.
More like a redevelopment district that covers the Port Shore area.
Further discussion?
Well, Tom, again, I want to make just one final thought here, and that is, I understand what the costs are. I think we have a pretty good handle on that and how they escalate from phase 1 through phase 3. But again, I believe part of my charge was, in fact, to be concerned about how the operations and maintenance were coming, how those dollars were going to come from, and I'm somewhat in dismay of why we haven't begun putting a conservancy in place that can actually sit down and have more of a concrete plan to look at how those dollars are going to be raised. I mean, we can sit and say all these different funds that possibly these dollars could come from, and I think we would all agree that's very possible, but that doesn't mean we have a plan in place and a feasibility study that shows where those dollars are going to be coming from. And I want to reiterate, this is not against the plan, this is against the timing. I would have preferred that, and not with what you guys have done, I would have preferred that as a city, we had moved further along with the conservancy, and that's my concern. That's all.
I think that the plan for operations will be made more clear once we've approved the design of the park itself. That is a point that I heard, as far as how that order goes. Once we actually see the plan and how this is going to be approved and what it looks like, then that operations plan can then closely follow. And, we saw the implementation of it. It's a long lead time, I think. So I think there's plenty of time once we say, yes, this is what we want it to look like, plenty of time to be able to make sure that we have that in place well before it's needed.
And just to kind of round this out, I don't think there's been a park subcommittee meeting that we haven't asked about that from staff. And throughout staff updates, we hear that discussions are beginning to put that conservancy in place. And those discussions happen at levels higher than us. But I totally agree with Mike. It's part of our charge to review and make those recommendations as we see on the plan, and then ensure that steps are put in motion that agree with that plan, that work with our consultants' recommendations, which is also a conservative. So I think we're moving forward, and I know for me personally, sometimes I have to remember that I can conduct my business a lot faster than a city can, but it's just me.
I just have one question, and this may be on page 289 too, David, regarding increase in park and recreational maintenance staff. That will be a part of but we will hear at some later date, because I can certainly see there will be a need for an increase in employees.
Right, as we get into the programming aspect of it, that will be addressed, yes.
And Gloria, there's even some neat opportunities to work with places like OSU, agricultural extensions, schools, to bring in volunteer students and training so that some of the maintenance and things can happen along the way. And, you know, there's a lot that could be designed into it.
Kim, I want to make sure that I don't want to cut off discussion. Any other questions? Want to make sure that we know what we're voting on here. You have made a motion, and we've had a second, for the adoption of a resolution. Councilman White's asking me, we have two in front of us. Which one of these two resolutions, the one that the subcommittee submitted as of yesterday, or the one that was in our packet?
The one that the subcommittee submitted yesterday.
Okay. So to make sure that we're all together on that, it's the one, I'm going to only read the heading, but to make sure we're all together, I'm going to read the heading, and then if they're, so that everybody has this in front of them. Resolution approving the MAPS 3 Downtown Public Park Master Plan and accepting written proposals with feasibility studies and financial plans for uses of all existing structures within the MAPS 3 Downtown Public Park within 90 days of the approval of the MAPS 3 Downtown Public Park Master Plan Project M3P006. Are we together? We all know what we're voting on.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't know if it makes a big difference or not, but what she actually read was the amendment or the resolution that was in the current package, not the amended resolution. So do we need to vote on that one and then in turn vote on the second resolution?
So you made a resolution about the first one that was in the packet. Kim,
When
was
she
that it?
read the title, it was the one that was in the package.
I would say that was an errant mistake on my behalf. So I would be happy to amend.
Carol, do we have to vote on the one that
Oh, we
she
have a
made a
second.
motion that was seconded on?
Well, it was never voted on, so you can just.
If you, do you want to change
that
your motion then? I'm sorry, can she change her motion?
Yes, she can change her motion.
Can you amend your
and read
motion?
the amended one.
With the second, then we'll have to ask for the second's approval. You want to do the one I just read, Kim, or not?
I believe what I need to do is withdraw my first motion.
All right.
And then restate my
Who
motion.
seconded the motion? You concur in her withdrawing it? All right. Now,
Thank you.
aren't we feeling great now? Okay. Now, Kim, would you like to make a new motion?
I would. And don't we all love Robert's Rules of Order? So
Okay,
I
you're right
would
there.
like to make a motion that we approve the resolution that you just read, the new one that came from the Park Subcommittee meeting yesterday.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Bob?
Just a couple of points of inquiry. Where is the Film Exchange building? I'm not sure that I know precisely where it's located.
It's on Robinson. It's just a little bit southwest of where the power station is.
Fourth and Robinson, Fifth and Robinson.
Fifth and Robinson.
Fifth, yeah. There's two buildings there, Bob, and
Okay.
the one to the north is not the one we're talking about. It's the one south with it's yellow right now. It's brick and it's rectangular.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, it would be in the promenade that's connecting, that's going down Robinson.
And are there other existing buildings? The resolution refers to other existing structures. Are there any in particular that we're concerned about? Or
There's another building to the north of it, right there on Robinson.
okay, but just those two?
Well, I think it refers to all of them, including the Citadel building also.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
So if we approve this resolution, we will have approved the master plan and moved it to the city council, and we will have given an opportunity to people who want to preserve buildings inside the park that are not planned to be included now. They would have to bring a plan forward within 90 days, and that would be another issue for another day. Am I thinking about that right?
So I assume if they bring forward a plan, and
It would come back.
that would come back for acceptance. If it were accepted, it would require a change in the master plan, because obviously it's in the middle of the promenade.
That's right, because it's not included in the master plan now. Are we together? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? All right. The motion is adopted. George, Jacob, Hans, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Is there anything else you want from them, David?
No, sir.
That brings us to then item 5 on the agenda, new business.
We don't have anything, Mr. Chairman?
Most of our business is old business, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Most of my business is old business. All right. MAPS 3 subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittees that want to make a report? We're going to call on David to bring us up to date on some of the happenings, but if there's a subcommittee that wants to make a report, this is the time. Nathaniel?
I'll just give a 60-second version. We got a great presentation from Kathy O'Connor on the different kind of economic aspects of our development and kind of update on TIF and other ideas for funding not only of ours but also adjacent projects. But we also got a scope of work update from our consultants that looked at some of the livability studies, ridership forecasts, and update incorporating a lot of that data, and environmental impact. So they've done quite a bit of work. We just got a high-level kind of version of that, but you can tell they've already put a lot into that, and so that work is proceeding as planned.
Thank you. Any questions for Nathaniel? Sue?
I'd just like to give a quick update on trails and sidewalks. We are proceeding with our additional funding on sidewalks, and the city is starting to advertise for that phase, so we'll be doing those additional miles on top of the plans already, just going down the master plan on that. As you'll see, our land acquisition maps are looking good. We have had groundbreaking, so we're making some progress on our first trail, and we are in the stage now where we're going to hold a public meeting for the I-44 trail, and I think David will tell us a little more about that.
Anyone else? Mike?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We were hoping that we would have perhaps a contract agreed upon this month. But as staff has got into the work of the senior wellness centers and have determined, and I certainly understand that, they've determined that there is a lot more legal work that needs to be done than originally, I think, appreciated. And so we are moving forward, the staff is moving forward to work on contracts with Healthy Living, Inc., to put a wellness center on Northwest 122nd and Rockwell. That was a proposal originally proposed by Putnam City Baptist Church, but now Healthy Living, Inc. is now its own entity. And the other proposer is North Care Community Health Center, and they are proposing to put a senior wellness center on the grounds of a public park adjacent to Capitol Hill High School on the south side. And so we're looking forward and hope and anticipate that all the T's can be crossed and the I's dotted. But because of the complexities of these contracts, that the city hasn't had very similar kinds of relationships before, it's just going to take a little longer, I think, than what many of us hoped it would be. And I think we're shooting for March now, and hopefully those contracts will be worked on and completed.
Any other? I'll just mention about the convention center that we continue to work on the plan that's under consideration that Kim's committee heard about. I'm going to leave it to David to tell us whatever he wants to know in his report about the convention center. But also, David, you might mention to us, you or Councilman White might, there was a presentation to the council about the convention center hotel location or something, and if there's anything about that we need to know, you can tell us, or if that's premature, you don't have to. Any other subcommittees? Okay, that brings us to informational items. David, you want item 7. You want to run through those for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in your packet, and it's on the screen right now, the park acquisition map, and it's stayed relatively unchanged because we're about 98% complete on the land acquisition. You'll see that the dark blue is what we now own, and the light blue is ODOT property that will be exchanged during a property exchange, and that all comes from some of the I-40 relocations, and it's in a larger group of properties. So we'll have that soon. And then the brown area up there is the old ramp, and that's another piece of property that we're going through some title issues with because it dates back to the 50s when it was acquired. Karen, if you want to move to the next one. And then this is the river trail. You see that we're making progress on acquiring land. There's some difficulties on acquiring land along the river because some of the titles indicate that the property goes to the center of the river, and if it was done in 1940, the center of the river isn't where it used to be. So when somebody else writes a meets and bounds description on the other side, they conflict. So we've had some title issues on those properties, but we're working through that, and you can see we're making progress on that. Karen, you can move to the next one. And this is the other half of that river trail, and you can see it's about 75%. There's only 2 parcels left, and they have similar issues, but we're making headway on that. That's all I have.
Right.
Then also in your informational items, I'm sorry, there's a couple of real estate purchases that you can see that were sent to council that have to do with the river trail.
Yeah, we have one for the convention center, it looks like, the last one.
That's right. There's a small piece right there along Robinson Avenue.
Okay. All right, that brings us to any questions for David about any of those informational items? Okay, that brings us to item 8. Any other updates you want to give us, David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to mention a few things. We'll start with the river. The Phase 2 improvements, which is improvements to the race course and some amenities down there, have begun. They just started this week. If you go by there, you'll notice that basin has been lowered. So the water is gone from that basin, and it's because of the MAPS 3 projects that are going on down there. Also, the Whitewater facility is in design right now. Mr. Dover covered the wellness center issues. We're still negotiating with partners on that. Trails and sidewalks was briefly mentioned. I'll add a few things here. The Phase 1 sidewalks in projects 1 and 2 are under construction. You've probably seen the construction that's going on in both North and South Oklahoma City, and it's really exciting to see that no sooner do they strip the forms off, the people are using them. They're out there walking and riding and running. Then we have the Phase 2 sidewalks are in design, and that's a whole another group that will be very similar to the ones that we have under construction. And I mentioned the Phase 1 trail along the river. The Project 1 is under construction. Phase 3 sidewalks, which is the new money that City Council gave us to do sidewalks, we've issued a letter requesting letters of interest for an engineer on that, so we'll soon start design on that. And then the Phase 2 trail, which is the I-44 trail that Ms. Hooper mentioned, are in design, and we have a public meeting on January 15th. It'll be at Will Rogers Garden Center for input on where that trail might go, and that's a trail that'll extend from Lake Hefner all the way down to the river. So it's right along that I-44 corridor, and part of this meeting is to determine the good things and bad things about different places where it might go. For the most part, it'll follow I-44, but it will go through some of the parks and some of the neighborhoods in that area. Then, as you mentioned, Convention Center, the conceptual design continues along with coordination with the boulevard and the streetcar and the park, so that's an ongoing project. Fairgrounds, if you've been out to the fairgrounds, you can see that the parking construction is well underway along with the utilities that are going in out there. The weather's held them up a little bit, but they're well underway. And then the design of the expo building is going very well. I think last month or month before you saw the preliminary report on that, so we're headed to final plans on that. As Mr. Harding mentioned on the streetcar, working hard on that. The preliminary design has begun, and then we saw all the work today on the park, so we're very busy.
Great. Any comments by any members of the board? staff. Opportunity for citizens who are here that would like to make any comment or ask any questions. Well, then I want to close the meeting by saying this. We're coming to the close of another calendar year, and I just want to express my personal appreciation to each one of you for the volunteer time and effort that you're putting in to making this transformational difference in our city. And I really appreciate all you do. David, to you and your staff, great job. To Mike and Nicole and all of our advisors and consultants. It may seem in some ways that it's moving slowly, but I think we have to take into account that we do not have a process that was designed for speed or simplicity. We have a process that was designed for due deliberation, for transparency, and for public input. And I think when measured by those things, I think we're achieving our goal, and I'm really proud of the great work you guys are doing. So have a great holiday season. Happy New Year. See you next year. We're adjourned.